this guy Zohran Mamdani here, hard left, radical Democrat socialist, promising all sorts of crazy stuff, government-run grocery stores, freezing the rent, free buses, all sorts of,
Mm-hmm.
crazy things. But here's the crazy thing here. The thing is that, the position that he's arguing from and the way that he's going with this is a way that's very hard for traditional politicians to counter because of course traditional politicians look at these sorts of things like, oh well, that's not possible. Oh, you're going to chase away your tax base, or you're going to
Right.
destroy the housing market. That's not the level on which he's arguing. He's arguing on a far more emotional level. I would argue that he's arguing on a sort of almost revolutionary level. He's basically personifying a lot of the sort of the change politics that we've seen, and also a lot of the politics of revolution that we've seen come out of the October 7th protests are
Mm-hmm.
crystallized in this movement. So what happens here is this thing where, you know, the whole oppressor oppressed narrative from college campuses and everything else to the protests around October 7th suddenly gets crystallized into a new sort of form of politics here. And that's where Mamdani is going. That's why you can't actually argue rationally against what's going on here. And his voter base here appears to be this funny combination of basically what you might call trust fund kids, but kids who went to Oberlin or Brown or something, and are trying to make it in New York where it's incredibly expensive and the jobs aren't there for them in the prestige industries that they thought they might be, and they're not having their glamorous Sex in the City lifestyles. And at the same time, plus a huge number of foreign-born New Yorkers, particularly ethnic and Muslim foreign-born New Yorkers. So it's this weird sort of coalition of these two groups of people that are pushing Mamdani into Gracie Mansion, which, as a New Yorker myself, a former New Yorker, lived there for the first 25 or so years of my life. I can't tell you how distressing I find this.
No, and you're not alone. Right now, there are plenty of people packing up their bags, ready to flee New York City, to get out as fast as they can. A recent JL Partners survey that was published in the Daily Mail found that almost 800,000 New Yorkers are prepared to leave the city. And of course, New York City, it has a population of just 8.5 million. So that's a significant number of people ready to pack up their bags and go as a result of Mamdani getting in. The same survey suggests that another 25% of residents would consider leaving. And I get it. I mean, you look at what Mamdani's stance is when it comes to policing. He's previously called to defund the police. He's said some plenty of awful things about police officers. Another part of Mamdani's strategy, of course, is going on TikTok and promising rent freezes, which we'll get into in a moment. But James, just on that point of the amount of people that are ready to flee New York City, I mean, what are the consequences here?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you're not going to see 800,000 New Yorkers flee, at least certainly not right away. But it's almost doesn't matter that number. What really matters, the New York City tax base is very, very steeply progressive. And if you just start to get a small number of those billionaires at the top end of the economic ladder start to say, well, no, we're going to go to Connecticut or New Jersey or Florida or Texas or some other place. I mean, I saw another story that said a lot of financial firms were looking at Texas as
Yeah.
a potential destination to move their headquarters to. Now, these are the people who pay the taxes, all right? The way it works in America is that you have federal, state, and city income taxes. Now, this makes for a very competitive tax environment in the United States. It's not like Australia. So, a high tax jurisdiction that doesn't provide good services, and where, as I can tell you, and I can tell you exactly what's going to happen because I saw this happen under previous administrations. David Dinkins in the 90s, de Blasio 10 years ago. The place falls apart, trash collection goes to hell, the police go to hell, crime goes up, taxes go up. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
pleasant place to live. And people who have options, they go. And people who have businesses take their businesses and they take their best workers with them. And they're all
That's right.
taxpayers. So the tax base shrinks. And so suddenly, you wind up in a position like New York City did in the 1970s when it essentially went bankrupt and had to be bailed out because, it was so poorly managed. This is the direction New York City is going again.
It's interesting. Hedge fund titan Cliff Asness is warning that this rent freeze that Mamdani is promising would be a hydrogen bomb for the local real estate market. He spoke to the New York Post saying that rent control is one of the few issues almost all economists agree destroys the city. Look, Donald Trump has also been posting about Mamdani. He wrote, if communist candidates around Mamdani wins the election for mayor of New York City, it's highly unlikely that I will be contributing federal funds other than the very minimum as required to my beloved first home because of the fact that as a communist, this once great city has zero chance of success or even survival. It can only get worse with a communist at the helm, and I don't want to send, as president, good money after bad. It is my obligation to run the nation, and it is my strong conviction that New York City will be a complete and total economic and social disaster should Mamdani win. Now, we know that Donald Trump can often be over the top. You know, he makes a lot of big statements. Is he being over the top here?
I don't think so. And thank you for your attention to this matter, by the way. But no, look, I don't think he is. I mean,
No, I agree.
whether you diagnose it as communist, strictly speaking, well, maybe that's too far. The problem, though, is that when Trump intervenes in an election like that, which is in a population that, let's just say, they're not the biggest fans of Donald Trump in New York City.
What?
Like, yeah, I know, it's a big surprise to you, Gab, but yeah, no, it's the danger is, of course, that it galvanizes the Mamdani vote. That's the thing. Like Mamdani is run as the anti-Trump candidate in a very anti-Trump town, and that's just the fact of it. I mean, Trump does well in places like Staten Island, which is working class borough, cops and nurses, that kind of thing. But among everybody else, no.
Now, let's talk about the shutdown, the government shutdown. The US government shutdown is set to become the longest one ever, dragging on for 36 days. Democrats have voted 14 times against a bill that would reopen the government, and Caroline Levitt has blasted the Democrats over this.
The administration is encouraging Democrats to reopen the federal government so this chaos and disruption to our air traffic control system in the United States of America stops. It is ridiculous that we have even gotten to this place and that the Democrats have continued to shut down the government with 35 days, our air traffic controllers continuing to work unpaid, every single major airline in our country coming out and begging the Democrats to please reopen the government.
James, yesterday 46% of flight delays, I should say, were due to staffing issues in air traffic control towers. So it seems like this is only getting worse, and it seems as though plenty of Americans really see through the Democrats here, that they are using this as leverage.
Yeah, the polling is showing that the Democrats aren't doing well out of this issue. Traditionally, Democrats have shut down the government and they've used it as a way to say, oh, look at these terrible Republicans. This time they've done it, and the polls actually are showing it's worse for the Democrats than it is for the Republicans. That's really interesting because it shows that their messaging just simply isn't landing. And people understand, that in America, and just people in Australia need to understand too, it's not 50%, it's 60% to get a budget resolution through the Senate. Don't ask me why it is. It's complicated. It's just there. So even though the Republicans have a bare majority in the Senate, they can't pass a spending bill without help of the Democrats. And they're the ones completely are holding this up.
James, let's turn to California's Proposition 50, Gavin Newsom's controversial redistricting attempt, which would temporarily redraw the state's electoral maps in a way that could help Democrats flip 5 congressional seats in the 2026 midterms. Now, Donald Trump has slammed this. He wrote on Truth Social, the unconstitutional redistricting vote in California is a giant scam in that the entire process, in particular, the voting itself, is rigged. All mail-in ballots, where the Republicans in that state are shut out, is under very serious legal and criminal review. Stay tuned. What do you make of what is happening in California and Trump's warning there?
Well, what you got to see is that this is all about Gavin Newsom trying to set himself up as the anti-Trump for the 2028 election. So this is what this is about. So he's picking fights with Trump on absolutely every ground he can, including this whole plan that Trump has to basically redraw congressional districts because, frankly, in a lot of states, they're really, really lopsided. So Democrats not only get too many representatives in Congress, but also that means that the electoral votes are also misdrawn, because if the census numbers are incorrect, then people are getting the wrong seats, in the wrong states. So there's two levels to this here. Newsom is, of course, trying to draw this huge distinction with Trump on this, but the fact is that California's districts are already a bit of a scandal. I mean, the percentage of people who vote Republican in that state versus the percentage of their congressional delegation that goes to Washington that's Republican is scandalously lopsided, probably only worse in states like Massachusetts.
Now, you won't believe this, James, and I can't believe that I'm saying this out loud, but Stephen Colbert, he's actually said something funny. Would you believe it? Look at this.
And the demographics of these shows are interesting too. It's about a third, a third, a third. It's about a third Republicans, third Democrats, third Independents. You'd think, old, people perceive me as this sort of lefty figure. I think I'm more conservative than people think. I just happen to be talking about a government in extremis.
Yeah.
And so what I'm giving you is my reaction video to the day.
James, he's a conservative, apparently.
Well, look, I'm going to give Stephen Colbert a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on this one. Now, I'm not a huge Colbert fan. But I have sort of tracked his career over the years. He's an interesting character. He really doesn't like Trump, and, let's put that to one side. But he's also one of the more actually thoughtful, if you can believe it, late night hosts out there. He's got a long Catholic background. He's more intellectually rigorous. And in the early days of Colbert, he was actually a lot less political and a lot less left wing. Now,
They were the early days, James.
They were the early days, but I'm just saying that, you have to take into account, the whole body of somebody's work. Yeah, sure, he may have the TDS now, but I think also he comes to his positions. I'll just say he comes to his positions probably a bit more honestly than a lot of people who are just, complete raving nutters on the topic. So I will speak up a little bit.
James, I am going to completely disagree with you. I'm going to put him in the category as a complete nutter. I mean, look at this, what went to air with his push for vaccines. Look at this.
The vaccine.
James, you cannot tell me he is not a nutter.
Oh, look, that was the stupidest, most unfunny thing that I've seen in a long time, and thank you for reminding me of that. But all I'm saying is that Stephen Colbert is not a dope like some of these other guys. So he may have some nutty opinions, but I don't think he's like stupid deranged like some of these other guys, like your Jimmy Kimmels and things like that, or like guys like David Letterman, who. I'm dating myself here talking about David Letterman, but was a guy who, went from being deeply funny, deeply subversive to being the most, establishment Trump derangement critic there is. So
there's a lot of them. Yeah, there's too many. There's too many to choose from.
Put it in perspective here. Put this in perspective.
We'll never forget that vaccine craziness. Absolutely insane.
It was a funny time.
Wasn't it? James Morrow, thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime. See ya.